Welcome to Storytime, brought to you by the OWSCyCon2019, the online book event of the year. Leaving Betty behind with Dorian wasn't Llywelyn's ideal plan, but he knew that she would only hold him back. Just because she was his maker didn't mean that Betty was much wiser than him. The longer he knew her, the more he suspected that she had merely been a sacrifice to the druidic gods when she was human, rather than the high priestess she claimed to have been. Llywelyn wished he could have taken one of the witches with him. Maybe not Cyril, but one of the more peaceful ones. Not everyone in Llangryn was obsessed with holding up the rules as the matriarch was. To his luck, he was one of the people that Caroline tended to trust, and he knew where her usual hiding place was. He also knew that it was too far away for her to get back before the sun came up. Caroline hadn't been to the Mass in ages. There was no way she could daywalk. Llywelyn forced himself not to think about what that meant for her chances to survive. He had to get a taxi to make it to the ocean. The driver didn't seem to be suspicious at all, and Llywelyn was glad. Glamour was one of the vampire myths he wished to be true. He could deal with the whole has no reflection to be wrong, or to be able to eat garlic, but what he really wanted was to be able to hypnotize people into doing what he wanted them to do. As he came to the cliff, he could see Caroline sit in her usual spot. She looked far frailer than the last time he had seen her. It was almost unbelievable that she had fed recently. "When did you last see a sunrise?" Caroline asked without turning around. She must have smelled him from miles away. Llywelyn sat down next to her and looked at the ocean. He wondered what she saw there that fascinated so much. "Yesterday," he said, and immediately felt bad about it. "You know, if you had come to church, you could have seen it too. It's really something the way the sun emerges from behind the horizon. I always try to stand up when the sun rises. Starting the day like that feels like I can accomplish at least something." While he spoke, Caroline edged closer and curled up against his arm. It was almost like in the old days. Back then she had worn a gown that made her look even more like a doll. Now she had just an oversized jumper that reeked of human scent. She must have stolen it from her victim. "Where did you get the jumper?" Llywelyn asked, though he knew the answer. He knew that he couldn't bring her back to Llangryn. The least he could do is let her talk in her last hours. He was painfully aware of the little tobacco box in the pocket of his jacket. That was how Caroline would come back to Llangryn. Sunrise was less than an hour away. He could make it there, but they wouldn't be able to return in time for Caroline not to burn in the car. "A nice woman gave it to me at the doctor's office, because she thought I was cold," Caroline said, slipping under Llewellyn's arm and hugging him like he was a long-lost stuffed toy. Llywelyn didn't want to ask the next question, but he needed to. "Was she the one you drained?" he asked. He couldn't bring himself to look at Caroline, but he knew that she was smiling. "Yes," she answered. "Di showed me how to get people to give me nice things, so I thought I'd try it." Of course it had been Di. Almost every bit of bad influence in Llangryn came from Di. Sometimes Llywelyn wished he had more control over his friend. Why did Di have to corrupt little Caroline? Most importantly, Llywelyn didn't even know why they had started spending time with each other. If you had come to church instead of walking around with Di, you would be able to see the next sunrise and every one after that. Why didn't you? Llywelyn knew he sounded more judgmental than he wanted to, but he wanted Caroline to understand. He wanted her to know what could have been if she had just tried. On the horizon, Llywelyn could see the first break of dawn. They didn't have much time left. "It is silly, really, that you pray to the ones who cursed us just to be able to see the sun," Caroline said. "Isn't it terribly bright?" In that moment, she sounded more like a child than she had in the first few decades. Llywelyn shrugged. "You sound like Di. Have you two spent quite a lot of time together recently?" he needed to ask. Caroline smiled. He didn't know whether it would be the last time he saw her smile. "He's fun to hang around. The only person in this stupid place that doesn't treat me like a child." Caroline pouted. She actually pouted. Llywelyn hadn't seen her do that since around the time Betty had turned her. "If you hate it so much here, why didn't you leave?" he asked gently. "I didn't want to hurt Betty. But you're hurting her now." He hated arguing with Caroline, but right now it was necessary. "I'm fed up with playing her little doll. She doesn't even treat me like a daughter. Mothers are supposed to care for their daughters, to encourage them. She lets me alone at the first meal of the night, just so that she can sleep in. Also, I can't stand her dog, if you call that creature even a dog." The little terrier that Betty had called Tony truly did not deserve to be called dog. It was barely even big enough to qualify for a full-grown mammal. "I don't like her dog either, but you don't think you are being a bit harsh on her?" Llywelyn asked. He looked over at Caroline. She shook her head. The sun must have been almost at the horizon now. He could feel her skin grow warmer, even through the jumper. Llywelyn didn't want to imagine the pain she was in. "Do you see how she treats the humans? Like they are her friends? Even you and Mr. Le Clermont don't have human friends, and you two are by far the nicest people in this town." Illyri, to most people, he was the outstanding citizen, but Llywelyn knew him better than that. He knew what Illyri had done in wars. Illyri thrived on killing. He was the only vampire that Llywelyn had ever seen kill someone without it being in self-defense or to feed. In a way, Illyri was more dangerous than die. "If we just tried to protect them," Llywelyn said, "I could tell you stories about the great Illyri Le Clermont that would make you doubt that he was such a nice person." "Don't be silly. There are few things that could make me change my opinion." Llywelyn looked out at the sea. Then he remembered. Why hadn't he thought of this before? There were caves here. If he got Caroline off the cliff now, he might be able to save her. This story time was read by Timothy Bateson and brought to you in conjunction with the OWSCyCon 2019. OWSCyCon runs from May 17th through May 19th. You can find us at OWSCyCon.OurRightSide.com. Again, OWSCyCon.OurRightSide.com. We have events happening across all genres. If you are a reader, you cannot afford to miss this event. You never know. You may just find your next best read.